Hi, we're about to do a 45-minute session on our hips. So we're going to do some hip opening and also some hip resetting or stabilization. If you do have a bolster, it's good to have a bolster handy. If you don't have a bolster, that's okay. You can get a blanket and roll it up. Or even better, if you don't have a bolster, you can use your yoga mat and also wrap a blanket or some towels just to create a little bit of a roll. Just have that ready off to the side to start with, and we'll come all the way down onto the back to begin. So we're just going to begin lying flat on the ground. Palms are facing up. Perhaps gently just rolling the neck from one side to the other, just allowing the upper back and shoulders to unwind. And then next, we're just going to take a little bit of pressure into the feet. So we're just pushing straight down and forward into the feet so that the low back is flat, okay? So that downward pressure through my feet flattens the back. And then I'm just going to lift the shin and gently twist the hip in and out. I'm just exploring the range of the hip here, just rolling in and out without trying to overstretch. And then I'm going to straighten the knees so the heel presses all the way up. If you're a bit tighter through your hammy, your heel might just press away with the bend in the knee. That's okay. Otherwise, press the heel away, trying to engage the quad. And then we'll just change to the other side. So pushing forward into both feet first, so you can anchor your low back. So you've got a little bit of support through the lumbar spine as you just create an internal and external rotation through your hip. So you're just using the muscles around your hip to create that movement at the knee. Again, maintain that forward pressure in your standing legs so that the low back is supported. And then just letting that relax, let's push the heels straight up towards the ceiling or thereabouts if you have a bit of tightness in your hammy. The leg is straight, try to engage the quad. And then we're going to place both feet down flat on the mat. So just feel like all 10 toes are facing straight ahead and continue to push into the feet this time, but we're going to push so hard that the hips actually do lift up. Now, just watch for this low back sagging, okay? If you just squeeze using your glutes or your back muscles, you're going to get this sag in the low back where there's no support. So keep pushing straight down and forward into the feet. And imagine you're trying to curl your pubic bone in towards your belly button, and this will flatten through that lumbar spine. Now, if you want to work the hips a little bit harder, just lift the heels, give the glutes a squeeze. Again, I'm still pushing straight down and forward into the balls of the feet. And then I'm going to maintain that forward movement now as I roll back down. Okay. Now, the next movement, we're going to start to externally rotate through the hips. But we're going to add a little bit of stability to this as well. So I'm placing the soles of the feet together and pushing forward into the pinky toe sides of the feet. So don't let your hips drop open to their full range. You're going to actually keep the knees at about a 45-degree angle. And then if you can manage just to sneak up onto the forearms or all the way onto the hands, then push into the pinky toe sides of the feet and try lifting up your hips. So if you've got instability through your wrists or your elbows, you might just keep it here and push forward into the feet without lifting the hips, or you can stay laying down. Remember, don't let the knees fall open. We're active in this pose. So soles of the feet are pressing together and we're pushing forward, okay? If you can hold and weight there through those arms, again, keep pushing forward and use that same action that you were doing in your bridge. So you're curling the pubic bone in towards the belly button. Take a breath, and then we're going to ease the hips down, either come back down onto the elbows or the back, and then just let the knees fall open to their range. So you don't have to push the legs open. It's just a really gentle stretch through the adductors here as we release through the hips. If you've had any issues with your hips, like a labrum tear, that often manifests as like a bit of a click or a pop in the hips, or of course if you've had some hip reconstruction, you just want to work with whatever your barrier is. Don't try to overstretch and create more range with this movement. Just letting the knees fall open to their natural barrier is all that the muscles need to lengthen. So try to hold this, and again, exhale. Allow the exhale to bring a little bit more length into those muscles through relaxing the nervous system. So again, you can stand a little bit up. If it's okay for your back and your hips, you can bring the upper body down. If you really start to feel a lot of pinching in the outside of the hips, you bring your knees up sooner rather than later. Otherwise, we're going to hold here for just 3 more breaths. Inhale deeply. Exhale completely. And relax the breath. Now, before we try to bring the knees together, I'm going to push forward into the feet so the muscles around the hip joints start to activate. And then if you feel really stuck, you can use your hands to help bring the knees up. All right? So now both feet are underneath the knees facing straight up. Push into the feet, just curl up a little bit, give the glutes a squeeze. If it feels okay for you, start to lift up a little bit higher. And if you've got range and stability through the ankles, then lift the heels. Again, feel like you're trying to curl the pubic bone under towards the belly button. So after having the hips open in external rotation, it's really important to reset them into their natural anatomical position. So this helps with that. And then we're going to roll all the way back down onto the mat. All right, so we're going to work a little bit more into the outside lateral chain of the legs. Now, if you have some sciatic or impingement syndrome, or again, some labral damage in your hips, then you don't want to push too hard with this pose, okay? So we're going to start, I'll just lift the right leg, and I'm going to do that same movement that I was doing before, just that internal and external rotation of the hip. So it's simply like I'm just screwing the hip in and out. So this is good for you again if you've got some tearing in the hip. If you want to go a little bit deeper and your range permits, push, I've got here my right leg up, so I'm going to push my right heel towards the left and then just see if the ankle will come to the front of the left knee. So you should be able to do that and feel like you don't have too much pulling around the hip. If there is a lot of pulling, coming deeper into this position is just going to create more instability at that hip, okay? So you don't want to try and push into that tightness, all right? Again, if there's injury, just work back on screwing the hip. If you're pretty good here, flex the foot so the pinky toe side of the foot comes back towards your knee. And then you might listen to the hip and go, oh, I'll take left foot out a little bit because it's a bit too strong. Or you might start to bring your left heel in a little bit closer. And if you've got the range, you can lift your left foot off the ground as long as you can maintain that pressure of your right ankle against your left knee. Okay, so this whole right leg is active in this pose. I'm not trying to overstretch or wrestle the leg into position. If you can't breathe deeply, then you're usually working against the nervous system. The body's saying it's too much, so you just ease off. So your breath should flow quite easily in the position. Now you'll notice I'm not reaching forward and grabbing the thigh and drawing it in. Again, it's just going to create too much pull through the posterior fascia of the hip. All right. Now, if you want to come a little bit deeper here, we can try popping the left foot down, bringing both arms to the mat like a robot, so your elbows are touching the ground. And then I'm going to see if I can twist to bring this right foot down into the ground. Now, if you're really tight through the back, roll all the way onto your left side. And then just, again, use the leg to move the leg. So I'm asking this right knee to push away from the midline whilst keeping the right foot on the ground. Now, if you don't have any issues with your back and your shoulder just allows you to keep it resting on the ground, then you can keep the upper body down. Breathing really deeply, again, just opening up through this right side hip and waist without having to push or pull. If your leg doesn't come all the way over, again, you're going to roll onto the side, or you might just be a little bit higher. Let's take another breath here. Allowing the exhale to bring some softness around the belly. Now, to safely come out, bend your elbows and push down with the elbows again. So as I push with my elbows, I'm going to support the back. Both sides of my lower back are now firmly on the mat. And then I'm going to straighten out through my right leg again and just bend and flex this knee a couple of times, just ensuring that the knee is no longer in a twisted position after being in external rotation. This is really important. And then we'll start to bring the leg down. Try switching on your quad as your right knee passes the left. And then just before that right heel touches the ground, squeeze the right glute firmly, like you're trying to draw the right leg back into its socket. And then you can let the right leg completely relax. Now I'll push a little into my left foot to bring the right foot in. Start to bring left leg up and internally, externally rotating this left hip, or just screwing in the hip. So this is where you work if you've got some injury and you're just working on getting a little bit more mobility through the hip. If there's no issues and you can, place your left foot to the outside of your right knee without using your hands to bring the foot there, then you can place it there. If you're having to use your hands to bring your leg there, you don't really qualify for this position and you can cause some injury in the hip. Okay, so don't go giving yoga a bad name by doing it the wrong way and forcing your body into positions that it's not ready to be in. Okay. Now, if you can hold the foot there all on its own, draw the left toes back towards the left knee. So I have got flexion of my ankle towards the knee. And then I'm just going to ask this left knee to push open a little bit again, so my hip's going to stay active. If there's a bit too much stretch, I can just sneak the right foot away slightly. If I want a little bit more, I can bring the thigh in a bit closer. It's okay to lift the foot up a little bit from time to time, but again, we're not going to reach forward, grab the leg and pull in, because you're going to create too much stretch in the hip joint. And we don't stretch joints in yoga, we lengthen muscles, we lengthen fascia, we mobilize nerves, okay? All of our joints should stay in their organic range all of the time, right? So if you want to take this into your twist now, just place the right foot down, push with the elbows just to support the back, spill the right foot onto the pinky toe side, and then see if the left foot wants to come down. If you can't quite get your foot down, just roll over onto the right side And then you can just point the knee up towards the ceiling or out towards the side of the wall. If there's no issues with your back and it's easy for you to keep the upper body on the mat, then you can take it there. Again, I'm just going to ask my left knee to lift away from the midline slightly. There's no issue with my right ankle or my right knee. There's no grabbing or tension there. If there were, I would come up a little bit more out of that rotation. And then using the breath, the exhale is what helps to unwind. Using the inhale at real full capacity helps to lengthen this line from my left shoulder all the way down to my left hip. Take another deep breath. And again, we'll bend the elbows and push into the elbows. And as I push into the elbows, it helps to support the back to lift the lower back onto the mat once again. Hands can relax down. Bring the knee back into the frontal plane and then start to straighten and bend that left leg just so that the knee is reminded of its hinging movement and brought out of any rotation from that externally rotated pose. And then when we bring this leg down, I'm going to push into my right leg. Keep the top of the left foot towards the knee, keep the quad engaged. Bring the heel almost to the mat, but pause just before it touches. Squeezing the left glute and using my glute in a way like I'm always trying to bring my hip back up into its socket. Then the heel can relax down, and then the hip can just roll out to its natural anatomical position for a breath. Taking both feet back in underneath the knees. Let's push straight down into the heels. Curl the hips under. Lift up. Give the glutes a little bit of a squeeze once again. And then rolling down from top to bottom. Okay, so from here we're going to spin straight over onto the belly. Just rest the head underneath the hands. Then I'm just going to bring my right heel up and towards the bottom. And then as I straighten the right leg, I'll bring the left leg in. And then right leg in and left leg in. So you'll notice the legs are scissoring, okay? So they're alternating, crossing one another in the midline. Try and gently tap the top of the foot so you get an even amount of pressure at the top of both feet. Helping to bring control to those muscles is really good for the nervous system, good for your balance. Breathe deeply, imagining that when you inhale, your belly button could smile. This will help you to engage the lower abdominals a little bit better. And then just let both feet relax. I'm going to push the pubic bone into the mat a little bit, lift the head, and then just fly both hands back next to the hips. So look straight down towards the mat so the back of the neck is nice and long. Feel the elbows like they want to draw in towards each other, and really fill your chest with your breath to help with that extension. So as I breathe deeper, that back is allowed to open up a little bit more. And then both hands can come around just to rest underneath the head. Glutes nice and soft. Just give the hips a little bit of a wiggle from side to relax the lower back muscles. Then next we're going to try and bend the knees to open up through the front of the hips. So both heels just coming in towards the bottom. Now this will vary. You might lift your feet off the mat and they might come just a little bit. That's okay. Work to try now, squeezing your glutes to see if your knees just lift off the mat. Now they'll only lift up a really tiny bit, okay? So if you can't lift your knees up, or if you go to squeeze your glutes and your back hurts, or you go to squeeze your glutes but your hips lift like this, then you're better off straightening your legs, okay, for this next variation. Otherwise, keep the knees bent. You can soften the hips for just a moment. We'll inhale, lift the chest as we did before. You might keep the hands down. If you feel like your low back is okay, then you can breathe your arms next to your hips like we did before, then take it there. Keep the elbows bending up towards the ceiling. Now, as I put my hands on my hips, I can feel that my glutes are engaging as I lift up my knees. Now, this is really strong for the low back. Don't hold it if you've got low back issues. And then to release, I'm going to take the toes down, curl them under, push the heels away, rest the head down, and then try rolling the heels in as I pull the kneecaps up the thighs and tuck the pubic bone into the mat. And then just let the top of the feet soften away. Now, if that was a bit of a struggle for your back, again, just keep your legs straight. And then we'll just inhale and lift up like this, squeezing the glutes. If there was no issues with your back as before, let's lift the heels in and then lift the arms away. So here we're working in towards Dhanurasana or the bow pose. And in traditional Hatha Yoga, we might grab onto the ankles and kick away a little bit here. If you don't practice yoga regularly or you're just starting out, don't try to do this because you're just going to overstretch the front of the shoulder capsules. You'll hurt your back, and we want our yoga to make us have a healthy, long, comfortable life. So don't ruin that just for one pose in your yoga session. Now let's bring both knees back down. Just come out nice and slowly, curling under through the toes, resting the forehead back down. Give the hips a little bit of a shake to relax the back muscles. If you're cramping up through the back of the legs, then lift the kneecaps up the thighs as you push your heels away and try to roll your heels in. Then just let those legs relax. Okay, so from this position, we're going to come into another hip opener. So see if you can push up by pushing with your knees to pop the hips. Take the hands either side of the chest and just try to roll up onto all fours. And then just round your back the other way. So we've got a little bit of a counter stretch after that deep backward bend. If your knees give you the range and you can drop your hips back to your heels, keeping the knees facing straight ahead, don't bring them out to the side. You can take yourself all the way down into a child's pose. And in this position, again, we'll create space through this low back area where we're just extending or bending into the back. Breathe deeply. Beautiful. So this next little series for our hips is going to open up through this lateral line again, so the outside line of the hips and also into the QL, into the low back. So we're going to use our bolster for this one or our rolled up towel blanket. So just take it straight in front. So the short edge of your bolster is facing the short edge of the mat. So, and then if you begin just kneeling in front of your bolster, then walking your knees a little to the left of the bolster, and then sit your hips, your right hip down on the ground. So I just come all the way down onto that hip. And then I can use my bolster to just rest the body down. Now you can have your forearms here either side of the bolster, You can have your hands across the top of the bolster to support the head. Or you can just bury your head into the bolster like so. Now, if you want a little bit more stretch, just push away through the hands, much like you do for the cobra. So as I'm pushing away through my hands here, I'm lifting the right side of my waist, my right side rib cage up and away from this right hip joint. And then if there's no issue with my left hip, I can just take my left knee behind my right foot. Okay, so it will look like this. I've got the knee just behind the foot, and I'm working to lift up and extend. And then you can try coming back down onto the bolster. Again, press the forehead straight down, or you can turn your head to the same side as your knee. Or if you want to work a little bit deeper, you can turn your head to the opposite side of your knees. And just breathing really deeply here. So you'll notice at the very top of your inhale, if you breathe really deep to full capacity, that you can feel that stretch coming all the way from the outside of the right hip, perhaps into the low back, into the QL area. If you're getting a bit of pinching through this movement, you can try just straightening your grounded leg a little bit. And if you want a little bit more in this position, as long as you can keep the outside hip and the knee on the ground, then you can start to straighten out through your right leg. So this is a really deep stretch through the outside muscles of your right hip, your grounded hip. And then if the leg is straight, we're also working on that neural tissue, those nerves that run down the back of the thigh and then branch out through the pinky toe side of the foot. Just keep the breath in a really steady rhythm. See if you can breathe in for about 3 seconds and then out for about 3 seconds. And just letting the fascia unwind as you hold this position. If it's becoming too strong with the leg out straight, just tuck the heel back in and bring a bit of bend back into the knee. Every inhale, I'm working to bring in at full capacity. And as I exhale, the breath is not in a hurry to be pushed out, but I am ensuring that it's all the way out, gently drawing the belly muscles in. On the inhale, the belly muscles soften to accept that breath. And then the exhale, we squeeze and gently draw in. Belly softens as you breathe in. And as you exhale, finish the breath off by gently drawing the tummy muscles. Let them soften. Inhale deeply. Exhale. Now, if your head is turned off to the opposite side, just bring it straight down. And then we're going to gently bring both hands either side of that bolster. Just push up a little bit. Now, I don't want you to be confined by your mat for this transition. You're going to bring your top leg on top of your bottom leg. And then really push with this bottom knee and your right arm to come up onto all fours. Okay? And then you can just walk back over onto the mat. And then knees this time facing the opposite side. So if you walk both knees over to the right first and come onto your left hip, then you'll be on your opposite side. Then we'll lie down, just moving that bolster in where you need it, or again, if you're using a blanket or just a few folded up pillows, we'll do as well. You can bring those in. Making sure that the outside of that left knee and the left hip stay down. So we're not lifting the hip up here at any time. But we'll work to create space by pushing away through the hands, lifting the chest. And it's like I'm trying to lift the chest away from the knees a little bit. And then I'll bring that fascia with me now as I come back down and rest the head. If you would like to take that top leg behind your knee, you can. So if you're on your left side, you can bring that right knee back a little bit. And if you want a deeper stretch, there's the option to start straightening out through your grounded leg. So you're just going to keep that grounded leg away, ensuring that the breath is still there. So if you come to the deeper variation where you have got that left leg out straight, but your breath disappears, you've gone too far. You want to just soften the knee and bring it in so the breath is easy and free flowing in this pose. Just allowing each inhale to roll in and each exhale to empty completely. We inhale deeply, exhale completely. So you do have the option to turn your head towards the opposite shoulder, so away from the knees. If that's a bit too much for the neck, you can just keep the forehead facing down, or you might keep your head facing towards the knees. Again, wherever you are, bring the breath with you. Feel you can inhale deeply and exhale completely. Check for any tension around your jaw. Make sure the teeth aren't clenched. Use each breath to scan the body, scanning the body for any unnecessary tension. Perhaps using your exhale to let it go. Okay, yogis, if your head's turned off to one side, just bring the forehead straight down. And then walk the hands back in each side of your bolster. So you're going to bring your top knee, your right knee on top of the left knee. And then push away with your hands and the outside of that left knee to come onto all fours. And you can make your way back onto your mat. Curl the toes under. So I'll give you a couple of options here. You can just gently just start to drop hips towards heels if you need to stretch out the low back. Or you can take one foot back, tuck under through the tail, just ensuring that your knee is nice and straight. And then change to the opposite side. I'm pushing down a bit into my right toe as I send the legs away. And I'm working on keeping my elbows unlocked as well in this position. Okay, so let's work on another reset for the hips. So usually after you stretch the hips out, it's a good idea to plug your hips back in. Okay, so we're creating some stability after we've created mobility or stretch. So you can use your bolster or your blanket for a pillow, and we're just going to come down onto the side. You can use a block, or you can just rest on the inside of your arm as well. So I've got both of my knees, one on top of the other, and my body and my knees are in about a right angle position. Okay, so if you look down at your knees and see that your top knee is behind your bottom knee, it means your lower back is most likely rotated. So by just making sure both knees are one on top of the other, keeps our low back in an aligned position. Now here I'm on my left side, so I'm going to push down with the heel of my right hand. And as I push into my bottom knee, I'm pushing into my left knee, I'm going to lift up the right leg and only come about the space of one kneecap or one fist. Again, I'm just working on lifting and opening through the hip. And I'm going to do that a few times dynamically, just lifting my right leg up and down about the space of one knee, maintaining downward pressure in that grounded leg. Okay, so my activation stays continuous through the grounding leg as I work to clam open through my top leg, my right glute med in this case. And then after a little while, you'll start to fatigue and you should feel that sort of like you're getting a dead hip or hammy, and then just rest. Now take a deep breath in, and then this time as you breathe out, imagine your lower ribs are coming down towards your belly button a little bit. And again, we'll activate maintaining that downward pressure through the left leg, and then just lift and lower that top knee. So this movement's only coming from the hip, and I'm not twisting into the back. It won't take long for that to fatigue. When it does, just give it a little bit of a rest. Take another breath. I'll use my exhale. So my ribs draw down a little bit, which lengthens the low back. I'll push down with my bottom knee, and I'm going to clam again with my top leg. Just lifting and lowering to that point of fatigue, coming only about the space of one kneecap. And just let that relax. So we'll change to the other side. You can roll over, or you can change ends on your mat, your open strength. Again, use whatever you can for a pillow, or you can rest down on the inside of the arm. I've got a right angle happening with the shins, the thighs, and the back. Here I'm lying on my right side, so I'm going to use the heel of my left hand just to stabilize the shoulders. And it's important that the opposite hand comes down, because if it doesn't, we tend to sort of twist into the low back and get this sloppy movement going on. So keep the heel of the hand down here if you can. Again, maintain that contact with your bottom leg so it keeps pushing down the whole time that you clam your top leg up and down. Now, remember, we're maintaining downward pressure and only lifting and lowering about the space of one of your knees. Check you're not clenching your jaw or holding your breath. You'll fatigue a bit quicker because we've used this leg to balance the opposite side. Let that soften. When you're ready, activate again, lower ribs drawing in, tail maybe tucking under. Push down with that bottom knee and just up and down, clamming into that top leg. And then let that relax. Breathe in deeply. Exhale completely. Lower ribs draw in. Keep that downward pressure with that bottom leg, and then lift and lower. This is a really good exercise to practice if you've had some balance issues. This is really good for helping your balance. All right, let that relax. And then we're going to bring the hips back into their neutral position again, just by rolling over onto the back. We'll rest the head down. I'm making sure that both of my toes are facing straight ahead. And I'm going to curl under through the tail here a little bit. Give the glutes a squeeze. Maybe even lift up onto the heels. Tailbone is curling under. And then I'm going to maintain that forward and downward pressure into my feet as I bring the hips back down and then heels back down. Now, just to bring a little bit of balance to this sequence that we've done today, I'm going to work on opening the upper body into Matsyasana or fish pose. You won't be able to do this if you've got impingement in your shoulder or a spur, anything going on with your shoulder range. Otherwise, just bring your arms underneath you so you're sitting on the back of your hands and then straighten out through your legs. And then you're going to bend into the elbows a little bit just so your chin tilts back slightly. Now you don't need to lift up and overextend like this. Again, it's just a tiny press into the elbows so that the chin points up. You should be able to breathe quite deeply here. This pose, Matsyasana or fish pose, named because our ribs are opening up like the gills of a fish, and that's where we want to take the breath. And then just gently bring the arms back down. We'll relax the hands down either side of the hips. I'm going to draw my toes straight back towards the knees, give the glutes a bit of a squeeze, and then simply just let the legs relax. So my heels will roll out into their natural anatomical position. I'll give the glutes a little squeeze again, and then exhale, let them completely relax. I'm going to breathe deep into the belly and then deep into the chest. Exhale, the upper body relaxes. And breathing in deeply all the way down into the palms. Exhale, relaxing the arms. Next, breathing in deeply across the collarbones and into the shoulders. Breathing in deeply, relaxing the neck, scalp, the jaw, the face. Whole body is relaxed. Inhale, peace. Exhale. Release. And you can rest as long as you like in Shavasana, the longer the better. Around 10 minutes is a good way to finish your practice and let the nervous system integrate. But when you are ready to move on, just place the feet under the knees. Roll off to one side. And then we can come to a seated position, just bringing the legs so that they're straight out in front. You can lean back a little bit if you can't straighten through your legs when you're right up on the sit bones. So sometimes we'll finish yoga in a cross-legged position, and this is really good for opening the hips. But over time, especially after decades of practicing yoga, you can overstretch the medial collateral ligaments of the knee. And you might notice that that's happening if you're walking around and you get a little bit of clicking or popping, or you have been in a seated position or an externally rotated hip opener yoga position, and that tenderness doesn't go away. So instead of finishing your practice in a cross-legged position, you should aim to have the legs straight out in front. Hands to heart, breathing in deeply. Thanks for joining me. Hari Om Tat Sat. Namaste.